Hi guys, Marc Shields here, Rapanui Life. Today I want to take you on a tour to Anakena, the one and only Anakena. Now I say the one and only for two reasons. Well, there's only one beach in the world probably called Anakena. There's only two beaches on the island, so it's not quite the one and only, it's a one and only of two. So it's not going to take you very long, it's going to take me a little while, about 25 minutes, so let's do it. So this road is definitely one of the best roads on the island. The Americans came in and did the first runway back in the early 70s, late 60s. There was actually a American army base here. They were here for like 3 years and they left behind them 47 children. Their Rapanui is such a small island, we're always looking for, I don't know, maybe someone to take them away during those times. Things were pretty tough. But also to get some new DNA in the mix. And so you've got a lot of these half American kids on the island. They're not really kids anymore. You can imagine they're all about 50 odd years old now. And in 1996, when they did some upkeep on the runway, they gifted this road to the island. 26 years or so this road's been here, and I've never seen a single pothole on this road. Anyway, this is the road we're going to take to go all the way to Anakena Beach. Have you got trees on East Island? Well, actually, there's a lot of trees. There's a huge amount of trees planted all through the middle of the island, and there you can see them all around me. They are eucalyptus trees. They were bought and planted through the 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s to build, I guess, houses and things. Horrible wood for building houses, so most of the time they just use it for fencing and for burning, cooking, that sort of thing. So yeah, quite a few trees. So just up to the right of me is a place called Maunga Pui, which basically means mountain pui. So I don't know what pui means actually, but Maunga definitely means mountain. It's there that once a year during the Tapati festival they slide down on banana trunks. The trunks of banana trees, they make these sleds and they slide down at breakneck speed, getting upwards of 60, 70 kilometers an hour. And I mean, they're heading straight down this hill. There's no stopping if you come off halfway down. And you hear that? That is the sound of silence. Something I've got a little bit used to actually, being on this island with no tourists. It's quite surreal. Got one of the most beautiful beaches. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. One little person over there, a little child. Rapanui people are amazing carvers, and we can see one of their carvings just over here. It's actually a carving of the first baby born on a Rapanui Easter Island. So we're actually going to go in and have a look at Anakena Beach. Anakena is a later name given to the beach. Ana means cave, and Kena is a type of bird, and it refers to a bird that lived in a cave nearby. But actually, originally this was called Hangarau o Tiariki, which means the Bay of the King, and it's because it's where the first king arrived when he came to Rapanui. Now, the legend has it that this king actually left his island because it was sinking underneath the ocean. But the high priest had a dream of an island towards the rising of the sun, and in this dream his spirit left his body and he flew towards this rising of the sun, saw the island, he flew around the island in his dream. When he went back to his body, he told the king. Anyway, the king put everyone into two big catamarans, and it seems that they came with a viable population, and they came prepared to colonize sweet potato, yams, bananas. And legend has it that he came here with his sister. He went kind of the long way to get round to the beach, and she went the short way, and he was jealous. He wanted to be the first one to arrive. He knew of this beach on the north side, and so he made the time stand still. While time stood still, he rushed his way around to Anakena Beach, and he came onto the beach first, and his wife was pregnant, and she gave birth as soon as she came to Anakena Beach. And this is them giving birth to the first baby boy of Rapanui. The first Rapanui person, really, because, well, before they arrived to Rapanui, they weren't Rapanui, were they? A manavai is when they ran out of trees and didn't have a lot of protection towards the winds, and things started drying up, they actually made these rounded circular gardens, and inside there you'll see the grass is growing a lot better inside than outside, and that would be plants. If they were in there, they'd be growing quite well too. The palm trees here were all planted in the 1950s, and you can see they're all planted in rows. And that's because they were planted by people. Palm trees, or coconut trees rather, don't self-germinate. It's really hard to get the coconuts to actually grow new coconut trees, so they don't just happen by accident. You have to look after them, actually plant them in smaller areas, get them growing first, and then plant them as trees. It's not the sort of place that coconuts just wash up and they start growing coconut trees on Rapa Nui Easter Island, probably because of the temperature. You can see there's a lot of horse crap around, and that's because on Rapa Nui there is about 6,000 cattle and horses, and they kind of roam freely. There's no one really owns enough land to keep them, so they just kind of wander all around the place. I mean, they only changed from a horse driving culture to a car driving culture, kind of the 90s really, and so the idea that horses are really important still is very deep in the Rapa Nui psyche. When I came to the island, actually, they would have their horses tied up outside the nightclubs and stuff. I mean, that's changed quite a bit in the last 10-15 years, but horses still are seen as something very important. They used to eat them, ride them, plow their land with them, and they do that still today, but much less. Usually it's tractors they're using to plow the land. They eat a lot more imported steak these days, although during the pandemic I'm sure a lot more horses were getting eaten than before. Not a whole lot of money going around at the moment. Now you can see as we walk down here, it's beautiful golden sand, and that's because of the crushed coral. And the lay of the land doesn't really permit a lot of beaches to be formed, and that's really why we don't have a lot of beaches. Most of the island is just jutting cliffs and rocks, and so here in the north side there seems to have been some sort of lava flow and currents that led to a beach forming. There are two beaches. This is definitely the major one. In summer you'll have a lot of people hanging out and having barbecue. Less Rapa Nui people usually. Rapa Nui generally go to the coast. They go to the kind of the rocky areas. They want to get away from people because they've always got people around them. It's the Chileans that love to come here and swim at the beach. If you do come to Rapa Nui Easter Island, give the beach half a day one day if you've got the time. I mean, it's worth it. So you can see up behind me, these really bring the whole beach together. I mean, it's a beautiful beach anyway, but with the palm trees, the golden sand, and these statues behind me makes it one of the most unique beaches in the world. And these statues are some of the more beautifully carved statues. They were slightly touched up when they were dug up in 1979. They were actually excavated by two Rapa Nui archaeologists, and they found that all under me where I'm standing, you can see it's all kind of grass and sand, but underneath me there's this huge courtyard, and as it was the royal area, it was, you know, it was the best. So you had the huge courtyard, had the beautiful statues. They're not as big as some of the other statues, but they are beautiful, and these statues represented the ancestors of high class. So what they would do with the people who died, who were high class, they'd bury them within the tribal area, which is actually a very common thing in the whole of Polynesia, where you would bury the bones of the dead within the area that you lived, that they would emanate this kind of power, and that power would help you to be blessed. It would help your fishing and your planting and all that sort of thing. You can see, if you look closely, these statues actually have very long fingers. They're actually fingernails, showing they're of high class and they don't need to work the land, and that's why they've got these long fingers carved into them. Every statue on a platform on Easter Island, Rapa Nui, not counting the ones in Ranariraku where the statues were carved, every single one on a platform like this behind me is actually restored. The first one that was restored now, let's go and have a look at him. He's way over there. So this Moai building era probably went from about 1200 through to about 1600. So you got a good 400 years of building these statues, and so you can see this guy is kind of a bit more brutish, a bit bigger, kind of. He was probably an earlier one. He was quite big, but they generally went from short and stumpy through to elongated and very fine statues. So this guy, well, he's a bit on the stumpy side. Interesting about him, he was actually the first one restored, put it back on a platform, and he was done by Thor Heyerdahl. He was a Norwegian explorer who came to Rapa Nui in 1953. He actually tried to argue that you could get to Rapa Nui drift voyaging from South America. Everyone up to that point had believed that the Polynesians had come and only come from the west, from Tahiti and New Zealand and Samoa and Tonga, put forth that the currents actually more commonly went from east to west instead of west to east. And he actually did a drift voyage. Took them about 3 months to crash land on an atoll in French Polynesia, but most people, they still believe very strongly Polynesians all came from the west, probably coming out of Samoa and Tonga through French Polynesia and then out to the three corners, Hawaii, New Zealand and Rapa Nui. He said to a number of Rapa Nui guys, you know how they raise the statues? And one of them says, you know, I know how he did it. And Thor Haida was like, but he said, all right, I'll give you $100 if you can raise the statue. So it was sitting down here in front of me and using just big pieces of wood, levering it up slightly and then sticking rocks under it. It took them with 12 people, but they got that statue standing up. And this guy in front of me is the first statue restored onto a platform, done in 1954. If you look up behind me, you can see on the backs of the statues, on the buttocks of some of them, they actually have tattoos, kind of a spiral tattoo if you like, and that was probably to denote which tribe they were from. Originally, the Rapa Nui people would tattoo themselves as a way of marking which tribe they come from, and sometimes also to record the history of their lives. Also, you can see in the process of building their platform, taking it down, building it, as they took down old statues, they would often use those old statues. Instead of getting rid of them, they would actually recycle them into the platform. We can see that quite clearly just in front of us, a head into the bottom of the platform over there. Hope you enjoyed this little tour, tiki tour, and we look forward to it next time. Take care.